Good morning, everyone. If you're tuning into this later on, the ETF has been withdrawn for now. We're going to discuss everything that's happening. We'll give everyone a couple of minutes to tune in. So if you're re-watching this later, feel free to skip forward past this screen, this tweet I've got at the moment, asking whether or not you care about the ETF proposal being withdrawn. So let me know if this is all coming through loud and clear in the comments. We've got 14 tuning in now. Fantastic. Smash that like button if you can, guys. If this is all coming through loud and clear. G'day, Brendan. 30 watching now. Beautiful. How's everyone's morning going? It's always good to wake up to some more crypto news, which I guess seems pretty bearish, but the price hasn't gone down too much. I'm going to talk about the price as well. G'day, David. G'day, Mark. Really digging your content the past few weeks. Thanks, Mark. We've had to put a lot of effort into keep people interested, I guess, in a bear market. So feel free to share this, guys, or let your friends know the crypto groups you're in, because this is a pretty big decision that's come out now. Good morning, Chris. G'day, Dan, David, Helen. And the market didn't move, says Shiva. So it's interesting whether there's no more weekends, there's no one left to sell, or if the market had already priced this in, that they didn't think there was a good chance of the ETF to get approved. So we're going to talk about all that today and go over what has actually happened. Have to work in 2 hours, Leon. Where are you? That's not a bad sleep in. It's already 9:30 where I am. 50 odd already watching. So smash that like button, guys. Share this around and we will get into it. We'll give everyone a couple of minutes to tune in. So I'll keep an eye on the comments as well. But for now, we are waking up to seeing this submission where there's been a withdrawal of their proposed rule change. So as you know, the Bitcoin ETF, there's been a number, most of them have just got flat out rejected, but this one has been delayed a couple of times, and they've been working really closely with regulators to try and get this rule change through to address the issues that the SEC saw. The problems that arise from having an ETF around a volatile asset like Bitcoin. What's the real price? Can it be manipulated? Who's got custody? Is it based off the futures price? So Van Eck and SolidX teamed up to do something a little bit different. And they thought that would be the proposed rule change that would make all the difference. But now we're reading these headlines this morning that they've withdrawn that rule change request. So that basically means they've withdrawn their hope to get the Bitcoin ETF approved for now. And we're hearing stories that it is the US government shutdown that has derailed these ETF talks, says, I'm not sure if it's pronounced Jan or Jan Van Eck, but he's a male. So you know the the SEC is affected by the shutdown. We've read a lot of these tweets and these stories about it can't get done. They can't continue these negotiations while the government shut down and people aren't at work. So whether or not they were fearful that the talks weren't going to be able to progress to the point before that date for it to be approved, or they just thought that, look, this is no chance, it's probably going to get rejected, we'd rather withdraw it and resubmit. So as I said before, it's really those custody, market manipulation, and the prices. They've had that the larger number, so it's around $200,000 per share, so they're not targeting those retail investors. But this is the story on CoinDesk that probably explains it best. So if we go into the details here, physically backed ETF is that big difference to a lot of those that we don't want. We don't want fractional reserves, rehypothecation. We don't want an ETF that tracks the price of the futures. We actually want a physically backed where they hold real Bitcoins for every contract or share that's purchased of this ETF. So that deadline was Feb 27th. But as we've been heading closer and closer to that date, and there's no staff at the SEC able to review these proposed rule change and have these discussions. So what this is the couple of quotes that I really like here. We're actively working with regulators and major market participants to build that appropriate structure and frameworks for an ETF and digital assets in general. So that's good for the future. All digital assets, I guess. And Jan Van Eck was on CNBC speaking about this and saying that it was the ongoing government shutdown that did affect it. But this is the other part that I like. So we were engaged with discussions with the SEC about Bitcoin-related issues, so the custody, the market manipulation, and all that had to stop. And instead of trying to slip something through, we just wanted to withdraw that application and we'll refile in the future. But if we head over here, Garbex, who's part of that team, saying that they're actively working, building those appropriate structures. But there was one other quote that I really liked here. So it was interesting to note, guys, that he was following me on Twitter, a bit of a surprise. So I have sent him a message, and I'd love to get him on the channel and talk about exactly what's happening from his point of view. But the other quote that was in one of these stories or on Twitter that I read was the fact that they are really confident. They believe that they've got some solid answers and they have addressed a lot of the concerns, which is what we want to hear. So as long as they've addressed those concerns and they feel that they've got solid answers for the concerns around volatility, if they're going to price it off OTC and whatnot, they don't believe that can be manipulated. That's what makes me really positive. And we know that Bitwise, again, filed another ETF. We know that the Winklevoss twins have come out and said that they're still fighting, and they were the first ones to put in that ETF proposal way back in 2017. And we know we've got an exchange-traded note in Sweden or Switzerland, so it's kind of out there. We've seen headlines that Japan might be pushing one through. It's a race to get it over the line. You guys know that I'm not too fussed about it, because I believe that real world adoption in developing countries is the number one thing that's going to propel Bitcoin higher, along with central bank policy. So if we have a look at the hourly chart here, Bitcoin, had a $50 or so move down on that news, but I would have said that if you had told me a few months ago that the ETF was being withdrawn, the main hope, I would have thought that we'd got a lot lower. So what I'm looking at now is whether or not the market digests this news, and in a couple more hours when the US and Europe go to bed and people close their trades for the day, whether we have another leg lower, because we're sort of right around this key support around 3,500 where we've touched a number of times, and then there's not a lot of support there under. So it's really interesting that this happens at these crucial price and times. And what do you guys think? On Twitter, as we said, around 80% of people saying that they don't really care this ETF's been withdrawn. There was a lot of hopium for that to end the bear market and to spur prices higher, but I think people have come to terms with the fact that as long as sentiment's down and there's not a big demand for Bitcoin in general, people aren't just going to change their mind all of a sudden if an investment product comes out. We still need Bitcoin to be heading on the right path and giving people reasons to invest in it. So I've got 100 watching now. I'll have a look at a few of your questions. So no moves in the Bitcoin shorts or longs. And some people do have hedges on for this being approved or denied. So let's have a look at this on the daily. Bitcoin longs, look, they're not too high, they're not too low. There hasn't been a lot changed. A few people may be closing now that the ETF has been withdrawn. There's less chance of a big move higher out of nowhere. And shorts, we've spoken about these a lot when they're up at these record levels, that the market has got less of a chance to go down when everyone's betting it's going to go down. And once we saw it drop off a bit, it tends to be when there's more of a likelihood for it to have that leg lower. So they remain lower, which I believe gives the market more chance that it can have another leg higher. If we're up here at these record highs, I don't think that Bitcoin would be as likely to break to new lows. And there's been a lot of talk lately in the Wall Street cheat sheet. Is a move from 6,000 down to 3,000 a 50% drop after a huge bear market? Does that count as capitulation? And that's a really great question. I'm going to be talking a lot more about that for members as well. Thoughts on Dragon Chain? I've started to do a lot more fundamental analysis. That was the videos that I love doing, and It's hard at the moment because fundamentals count for nothing at the moment, but I think they're going to count for everything in the future. If you believe in this long term, buying a small amount of Bitcoin every payday, yeah, I mean, some people like dollar cost averaging. Some traders don't like dollar cost averaging at all. They think wait for the bottom to be in, then buy. Whereas other people that aren't good at trading and they believe in Bitcoin long term just want to buy a little bit each week. NAB closing exchanges. Yep. So another bank in Australia shut down another crypto exchange. If you're feeling bullish because there's no real dump, well, I guess that's one way you can view it, that there hasn't been any sell-off. So was this already priced in? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Was this already priced in? Why haven't we had a sharp move lower on such negative news? In a bear market, a lot of people were still hanging their hopes on this, I would have thought. Or has everyone given up? And that's the interesting thing when you look at the Wall Street cheat sheet and you look at this anger, denial, depression phase, right at the ends, capitulation. If we've had it, a lot of people don't think we have had it yet. They don't think that people would throw in the towel to 1,000. But you've got to look at it not just as Bitcoin traders and investors. You've got to think of it as the broader public and people that were in crypto or were interested back in December 2017. They are just so uninterested. They think this is a bubble. They think it's all dead. So when you take into account all that sentiment, you've got to say, well, really, who's remaining? And even those people are kind of in this depression, denial phase. They're really upset with a lot of their investments and the space in general, whereas the general public's probably completely uninterested. Will BACT happen with government shutdown? No, I think that reduces their chances as well. They still need to get approval from the CFTC, I believe. A lot of people are saying that they can be self-regulating, but I think because it is that new asset class, I don't think they can just launch that vehicle. That's what they've said. They're still working with regulators. If everyone's given up, well, I don't know if everyone has given up. I did a poll the other day and there was about 70% of people thought that Bitcoin was going to go below 3,000. So if that was 90% of people, then you could say, yeah, just about everyone thinks that we're going down. And when everyone thinks that something's going to happen, tends to be when it doesn't happen. Like the fundamentals on Binance, exposure through Crypto 20. Yeah, Crypto 20 that gives you exposure to the top 20 is great for anyone that's just getting started that doesn't want to pick the individual stocks. Automatic approval if there was no decision, and they're probably just not going to, after all these delays, they're not going to just automatically let it slip through. I think the chances of that were really slim, so that's probably why they've withdrawn it. 10 years ago, this conversation would be considered insane. Yeah. Man, oh man, even 5 years ago to say that we'd be having these conversations about the Bitcoin ETF, how likely it is to be approved. It's come a long, long way, and particularly in a bear market. Recent thoughts on pumps on a handful of alts. Yeah, I know I've posted a few like trade ideas that are going against the grain. Some people saying, that's dangerous in a bear market. That's certainly true to go against the trend. But when you look at, I think Power Ledger had an enormous run the other day off the lows, up 100%. Was this priced in? So it came out the other day that they'd had a big partnership in Japan, and you've got to love crypto with a leaky ship when there has this big 100% move leading into the announcement, and then it dumps afterwards. So buy the rumor, sell the news. But yeah, there's a handful of coins that are up between 50 and 100% in a couple of days. And if you're a trader, there are opportunities. Even with Ethereum, it's just sort of holding up. There's been good buying volume. That tends to lead alt season. I've spoken about this before, and we're at a really important time now where we're looking to form a higher low on the weekly. And if we can form that and take off, then that is in a weekly uptrend. But we need good volume to come in. Ethereum tends to lead alt season. Yeah, there's a lot of these altcoins that are a lot further away from making new lows than Bitcoin is. Alts are getting above their moving averages. Yep. People have become numb to the bear market. Yeah, I agree. A lot of people are just in hodl mode. They're so far down that they've they feel they've got nothing more to lose. They're better off just to hodl now. A lot of people have been asking me about the 14-15 bear market and comparing that to now, and I reckon that's probably a whole episode for itself. So wrapping up, guys, they have withdrawn their submission for that proposed rule change that would allow that ETF to get approved. A lot of people saying that this is from US government shutdown. Have a read on Twitter. Gabor Garbax, his tweets. Jake Chavinsky puts out some great tweets about the ETF at the moment. But that is it for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed that one, and we'll talk again soon.